But first, workers that care for some of Victoria's most vulnerable children are tonight going public about what they claim is a highly dangerous and violent workplace at a care provider in Warrnambool. Community Connections is a not-for-profit organisation that, amongst other services, runs residential care units for children who can't live at home. It's the same organisation that cared for a 12-year-old girl who fell pregnant while living in one of those units. Former employees have told 7:30 Victoria they've witnessed records being falsified and staff pressured to change evidence. In the picturesque seaside town of Warrnambool, some very ugly allegations are being made.
I witnessed a system where there was traumatised children being re-traumatised. There was staff being hurt regularly, and there was no support.
This former residential care unit worker is hiding her identity because she's fearful of speaking out against her former employer, Community Connections. It's funded partly by the Department of Human Services to provide child and family services across southwest Victoria, including Warrnambool. This woman worked in the units where vulnerable, traumatised children live together.
Unfortunately for some of these children, what they experience in residential care is far worse than the situations they were removed from.
In what way?
As in the level of violence they are exposed to and the lack of protection for them.
Just a few months ago, WorkSafe issued Community Connections with a series of warnings over its residential units, including failing to follow up on a serious violent incident. WorkSafe says Community Connections has recently complied with the notifications. But this woman witnessed similar concerns when she worked in the organisation's units.
I have seen grown men crying and shaking because of the traumatic events that have taken or unfolded on their shift. Women assaulted regularly. One worker was kicked in the face and was bleeding on the ground.
And it's not just the violence that concerns these workers. Both women allege staff have been told to falsify reports of assaults and children running away.
Information was not correct. It wasn't a true account of events. Staff members were asked to write details in a way that didn't portray the actual events.
Kathy claims a manager was seen writing a report under an employee's name. It was about a Category 1 incident, the most serious range that includes assaults, rapes and overdoses.
This worker went into his office and observed that it was written in their name, the worker's name. Now that, as far as I'm concerned, is illegal.
Good boy, drop it.
Gary Lucas has more time than he used to spend with his dog.
I was standing up for what was right, you know.
Mr Lucas worked as a housing advocate and financial counsellor for Community Connections for nearly a decade. He says he was targeted and eventually sacked due to his involvement with the union and his willingness to raise staff concerns.
People were coming up to me every day with things, complaining about things that happened to them, bullying and harassment. It was hard on everyone there, you know.
I certainly was screaming loud.
Lanieve Whiting chaired Community Connections board for 10 years. She resigned 2.5 years ago, saying her concerns about governance and bullying were continually dismissed.
Putting forward motions that may, I suppose, put a little bit more scrutiny under what was happening in the organisation and not being supported in that process.
Lanieve Whiting also raised concerns with the Department of Human Services Regional Director.
From that interview, I am still left with no response as to what happened, and that was 18 months ago.
The Australian Services Union claims up to 40 staff have been sacked or resigned from Community Connections in the last few years. The staff we spoke to say those departures have led to unqualified workers being hired, sometimes without required police checks.
Our members report to us that the staffing levels required by the Department of Human Services are not always followed. So we're concerned about where the funding for these programs is going.
Despite repeated requests, Community Connections CEO Bruce DeVerger refused to be interviewed or comment on this story. A few weeks ago, he wrote to staff denying his organisation was being investigated by the Department of Human Services. But in a statement, the Minister for Community Services, Mary Wooldridge, has confirmed an independent review of the organisation's residential care units began in June. Is that enough?
No, it's not enough.
Why not?
I believe the whole agency needs to be carefully looked at.
Former staff fear a child or those caring for them will die if changes aren't made soon.
I think I can safely say, speaking on behalf of most workers, that everyone has that fear. Very concerned at the safety of the clients, and very concerned that some staff member may not go home one day.